Thank you. I wanted to kick it off by just stating the obvious, and that's that we have a huge problem when it comes to paying for childcare. And I don't know if anyone's ever had to pay for childcare here before. Yeah, well, I haven't. I don't have any children, and just knowing the price tag completely freaks me out. And here's what happens when other people in this province see that price tag. They're sitting down, maybe at their kitchen tables right now, and they're crunching some numbers. They're crunching numbers on a monthly basis, because let's face it, that's how you and I make our household budgets. And they may be finding that it just doesn't make financial sense to pay for childcare right now. And what makes the most sense for them is to have one parent step back from the labor force for just a few years and carry on. The thing is, it doesn't always make sense, not when you take a long-term view. Thank you, she knows. Studies confirm that when the parent, and we know that that's more often than not the mother, exits the workforce for a few years, I mean just a few years, right? That she'll take a greater reduction to her lifetime earnings than if the family had found the cash to pay for childcare up front. So another way of thinking of this problem, which I recently dismissed as being quite obvious, is that for some families, it's actually a little bit more of a liquidity issue. And that's to say that many people actually can afford childcare quite easily in the long run if they're able to smooth those costs. But they need the additional access to capital in the short term. Now, in the childcare space, we all know this, most of the ideas out there revolve around universality and kind of a set daily price. But what if you could spend just a little bit more today and save money in the future? In Ontario, childcare is actually more expensive than university. Last year here in Windsor, the median price, so just the median price, of putting an infant in childcare was $977 a month. So let's call it $1,000. Undergraduate tuition, on the other hand, for a BA at the University of Windsor, again, these numbers are from last year, they could be out of date, was $3,933.08. Let's divide that by 12 months in a year. We get $327. Okay, you think, she's cheating. It shouldn't be 12, it should be 8, because we all know undergrads have those 4 months off. Fine, we'll divide it by 8. That's $491. It's still half than the price of childcare. So, why is it cheaper to send your child to university than to childcare? And I want to highlight that inequity, not to suggest that we start giving babies BAs. We shouldn't. And I think there are some really good reasons why childcare is a little bit more expensive, right? There's a completely different ratio of adults to young people when we're investing in early learning than when we're investing in PSE. But I wanted to draw that distinction and remind you that when it comes to paying for university, the state actually helps and rewards, it facilitates saving and spending for post-secondary education. We have the RESP vehicle that the feds will top up, and we have OSAP, the Ontario Student Assistance Program. And when it comes to childcare, we don't have a particular vehicle that's kind of targeted in that way. And parents don't have that 18 year, I almost said 18 month. Maybe they don't even have 18 months when they're preparing to pay for childcare. They don't have that kind of runway. And it's doubly ironic when you think about this really weird way we make people pay for childcare. And that's upfront every month. So in this country, it's kind of cool. You can buy a couch on layaway, but when it comes to childcare, cough it up. And I guess I'm kind of asking you today to think about, what if we had student loans for babies? So we know that women's labor market participation tends to be closely related to, get this, the availability and affordability of childcare. Who'd have thunk it? Research from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives suggests that when childcare is readily available and affordable, women's labor force participation and birth rates often increase. Two things that are pretty important for the province's productivity. According to the Advisory Council on Economic Growth, which is a pretty popular group, women in Canada who are outside of Quebec, aged 25 to 54, who have children under the age of 16, have a considerably higher workforce participation rate. So the policy goal here is not just to smooth the cost of childcare, but fundamentally to improve women's labor force participation rates and make it easier for families to afford having children. That said, and maybe you've jumped ahead and you're already thinking about this, there are a lot of good reasons to oppose such an idea in the first place. For one, provincial governments, they're not banks, and they don't have the same skills and experience to loan funds. Canadian household debt, maybe you've read, it's at an all-time high. And frankly, at the end of the day, having people borrow money to subsidize a service is kind of a strange way to go about it. Slate actually called the very idea of childcare loans a debt trap. But what if this program could help ease the squeeze on millennial families? What if we treated young families the way we do young businesses? And we didn't just look at their money from a month-to-month basis, but we took the 3-year, the 5-year, the 10-year time horizon. What kind of decisions would we be making today as we think about what kind of trade-offs for tomorrow? Perhaps helping middle-class families, who are officially the most politically palatable group of all time, access the capital required for childcare could help improve access overall and even drive the creation of more licensed spaces. Now, the province is pretty hot on the case when it comes to childcare. In the most recent speech from the throne, the Ontario government pledged to create 100,000 new childcare spaces, and this year it aims to create 3,400 more in our schools. However, this investment alone will fail to close the province's prosperity gap or increase labor market participation rates unless we take further action to lower the cost of each and every single one of those spaces. And why are we stuck with the status quo? Part of our challenge advancing in the childcare space is that it's dependent on federal fiscal transfers. The province sets the policy, the municipality is the service provider, and it makes it kind of impossible for one actor or one order of government to revolutionize the system solo. And what do? We just kind of wait. We wait for federal elections, hoping this will be a priority, dreaming of universality, and again, stuck with the status quo. I believe that giving some qualifying families modest loans in that same way we do with confidence and comfort through the OSAP program, so that they can carry those costs of childcare and keep both parents in the labor force, would make childcare more affordable for them. But you know what? It wouldn't achieve the ultimate policy goal: more affordable childcare for everyone. However, I think it could still pave the way for a more inclusive prosperity. I'm gonna wrap up with a little bit about me. This is my original area of expertise. So, when I was little, I went to kindergarten, which was still half a day, by the way. And before that, I went to preschool. I went to preschool I went to preschool for half a day, every other day, with my twin brother, and it was the best time. My parents had just moved from Montreal to Toronto to Hamilton, removing my mother from the labor force because she worked for a family business. Down to one income and with a new mortgage, my family had to make a choice about which parent got to work and how much childcare we could afford, just how much they could invest in us to give us the best possible start in life. In the future, I think we could do a little bit more to make sure that families have more than one choice, that choice I just told you about here in Ontario. And I believe that not piloting, not investing more creatively in flexible, targeted financing options for families across the province could actually be one of the most expensive mistakes that we make as we seek inclusive prosperity. Thank you very much.